The security scanner hummed its usual monotonous tune at Gate 7 of the Galactic Transit Hub, and I, Officer Venik of the Krellian Border Patrol, was having what I thought would be another mind-numbingly boring shift. You know the type. Scan a badge, wave someone through, pretend to care about the 73rd merchant complaining about tariffs. Riveting stuff, really. Then he walked up, human. Male. Approximately 6 feet tall, which I'd learned was average for their species, though nothing about humans ever really felt average once you spent time around them. He wore a simple gray jacket, dark pants, and had this infuriatingly casual expression that screamed, "I've seen things that would make your antennae curl, but sure, let's pretend this is normal." "Identification, please," I droned, not bothering to look up from my datapad. He slid a standard transit card across the counter. Marcus Cole, the display read. Freelance security consultant. Origin, Earth. Destination, Pinnacle Station. All seemed perfectly ordinary, which should have been my first clue that nothing was ordinary at all. Anything to declare? I asked, running the preliminary scan. Just myself, he said with a half-smile that could mean absolutely anything. I hit the biometric scanner, expecting the usual green confirmation light. Instead, the machine made a sound I'd never heard before. Not a beep. Not a buzz. It was something between a wheeze and a digital scream, like the scanner itself was having an existential crisis. The screen flickered. Once. Twice. Then text began scrolling. Fast. Too fast. Biometric match confirmed. Secondary identification detected. Military record located. Classification level, Omega Black. Clearance required, level extinct. Error. 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 Access denied. System override attempted. Override failed. Alert. 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 My 3 eyes widened. All of them. Simultaneously. What in the 7 frozen moons of Kelter is level extinct? I muttered. Marcus, because apparently that was his actual name, just stood there. Calm. Collected. Like watching a security system have a complete meltdown was something that happened to him every Tuesday. Sir, I said, my voice climbing about 4 octaves higher than I intended, I'm going to need you to step aside. Sure thing, he replied, moving to the holding area with the kind of easy compliance that somehow made everything worse. Behind me, Senior Officer Thax was already scrambling over, his scales shifting from their usual blue to an alarmed purple. What's happening? Did you break the scanner again? I didn't break anything. I protested. It just started freaking out when I scanned his tattoo. Tattoo? Thax leaned closer to the screen, his pupils dilating as he read the cascading error messages. Oh. Oh no. Venik, do you know what Omega Black means? I'm guessing it's not good? It's not even supposed to exist anymore. Thax's voice dropped to a whisper. Omega Black was the classification level used during the Rixian conflict. You know, the war that officially never happened? The one that maybe, possibly, allegedly involved Spec Ops teams so classified that their existence was erased from every database in the known galaxy? I looked at Marcus, who was now examining his fingernails with the kind of intense focus people use when they're deliberately not paying attention to something. Him? Apparently him, Thax said, his tone equal parts horrified and impressed. The main terminal started beeping. Not the friendly "you've got mail" beep. The "someone very important and very angry is trying to contact you right now" beep. Hit the receive button and immediately regretted every life choice that had led me to this moment. Commander Zelthix appeared on the screen. Commander Zelthix, who ran the entire security division of this sector. Commander Zelthix, who made grown Krellians weep with a single glance. Commander Zelthix, who was currently staring at me like I'd just juggled antimatter grenades in a daycare center. Who, she said slowly, each word sharp enough to cut through whole plating, authorized you to scan a Tier 1 asset? A Tier what now? I squeaked. The human. The human currently standing in your holding area. The human whose file apparently just triggered emergency protocols across 47 star systems. I glanced at Marcus, who gave me a little wave. An actual wave. Like he was greeting a neighbor at a garden party and not causing an interstellar incident. Ma'am, I didn't know. He just walked up with a standard transit card and you scanned his military tattoo, Zelthix interrupted, pinching the bridge of her snout. The tattoo that's embedded with quantum encrypted identification markers. The tattoo that's directly linked to High Command's blackest Black Ops database. The tattoo that just crashed 17 security servers and sent automatic alerts to people who are going to be very, very interested in why someone accessed a file marked level extinct. Thax, ever helpful, chose this moment to lean into the camera frame. For what it's worth, Commander, the scanner started it. Her glare could have melted tritanium. Both of you. Secure the area. Do not, under any circumstances, let that human leave. I don't care if he asks nicely. I don't care if he says please. He stays put until High Command figures out what to do about this. The screen went dark. I turned to Marcus, who was now sitting on a bench, looking entirely too comfortable for someone who'd just caused a multi-system security crisis. So, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, want to explain what just happened? He shrugged. You scanned my tattoo. Yes, thank you, I was there. Care to elaborate? Not particularly. Thax moved closer, his hand resting on his sidearm with the kind of nervous energy that suggested he wasn't sure if he'd need it but really hoped he wouldn't. Human, we're going to need some answers. That file says your clearance level is extinct. As in, shouldn't exist. As in, was deliberately removed from every system because the people who held it did things that governments would rather forget. Marcus looked up, and for just a second, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Something old. Something tired. Something that had seen far too much and carried far too many secrets. Yeah, he said softly. That sounds about right. The door to the security station slid open. 3 figures entered, all wearing the kind of unmarked black uniforms that scream official business that you really don't want to know about. The lead figure, a Vaxian with ceremonial combat scars, approached our desk with measured steps. We're here for Cole, the Vaxian said, not asked. And you are? I tried to sound authoritative. It did not work. Clean up crew. The Vaxian's smile had too many teeth. The human comes with us. You forget this ever happened. Everyone goes home happy. Marcus stood, but he didn't move toward them. Let me guess. Memory wipes for the security officers? Sealed records? Maybe a convenient data corruption that erases the last hour? The Vaxian's smile widened. You know the drill. I do. Marcus's voice hardened. And I'm not doing it anymore. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. That's not your choice to make, Cole. Actually, Marcus said, and now he wasn't smiling at all, it really is. His hand moved. Not fast. Not theatrically. Just a simple gesture, pulling back his sleeve to fully reveal the tattoo that had started this whole mess. It wasn't just ink. It was moving. Shifting. Lines of code and symbols I couldn't begin to understand rippled across his skin like living circuitry, pulsing with a faint blue light that definitely wasn't standard human biology. The Vaxian agent took an involuntary step backward. Oh, Thax whispered beside me. Oh, those aren't standard military markings. No, Marcus agreed. They're not. And that's when things got really interesting. The Vaxian agent's hand moved toward his weapon, which was, in my professional opinion as someone who very much valued continuing to exist, a spectacularly terrible idea. Marcus didn't even blink. I wouldn't. The words hung in the air like a physical threat, and I watched as the agent's hand froze halfway to his holster. Not because Marcus had drawn a weapon. Not because he'd made any aggressive move. But because something in his voice, something in the way those tattoos pulsed with that eerie blue light, suggested that drawing that weapon would be the last decision anyone in this room ever made. You don't have authority here anymore, Cole, the Vaxian said, though his voice had lost about half its confidence. Your clearance is extinct. You're a ghost. A relic from operations that officially never happened. Exactly, Marcus replied, and I swear I saw the corner of his mouth twitch. I'm extinct. Which means I don't exist. Which means I don't have to follow your rules anymore. Funny how that works, isn't it? Thax leaned toward me, his whisper barely audible. Venik, I think we're watching something very dangerous happen, and I'm not entirely sure we should be standing this close. Can't argue with that assessment, I muttered back, but my feet seemed rooted to the floor. Call it morbid curiosity. Call it professional obligation. Call it the paralysis of sheer terror. Whatever it was, I couldn't look away. The second agent, a humanoid species I didn't recognize with too many joints in all the wrong places, spoke up. High Command wants you contained. They're willing to negotiate terms. Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. Not a polite chuckle either. A full, genuine laugh that somehow made the situation even more unsettling. Negotiate? That's adorable. Tell me, how many of the original Omega Black operators are still alive? Silence. That's what I thought, Marcus continued. Let me paint you a picture, gentlemen. 20 years ago, I was part of a unit that didn't exist, running missions that never happened, fixing problems that governments couldn't acknowledge. We were good at it. Very good. So good that when the Rixian conflict ended, when peace treaties were signed and hands were shaken, we became a liability. Can't have peace when living weapons are walking around with all those inconvenient secrets. The tattoos on his arm pulsed brighter, and I noticed something I'd missed before. They were spreading. Creeping up his neck, down toward his fingers, like they were waking up after a long sleep. Most of my team took the deal, Marcus said quietly. Retirement. New identities. Memory suppression. A chance to forget the things we'd done and become normal again. Some took the other deal. The permanent one. The one where you don't have to worry about nightmares anymore because you don't wake up. And you? I found myself asking before my brain could stop my mouth. He turned those unsettlingly calm eyes toward me. I took the third option. The one they don't like to talk about. I walked away. Kept my memories. Kept my skills. Kept my very illegal, very classified augmentations. He gestured to the tattoos. These aren't just markers, Officer Venik. They're integrated tech. Quantum neural links. Combat enhancers. Access codes to systems that were supposed to be destroyed. I'm basically a walking, talking violation of about 1700 interstellar laws. Thax made a sound somewhere between a whimper and a gurgle. The third agent, who'd been silent until now, finally spoke. Female. Krellian, like me, but with military bearing that made my casual patrol stance look like a joke. Cole, you're putting these officers in danger. This conversation is classified beyond their clearance level. Every word you speak is digging them deeper into a hole they won't climb out of. Marcus's expression softened slightly. You're right. Which is why I'm going to make this simple. He looked directly at me and Thax. You too. Right now, you have a choice. Option 1, you let these nice agents take me away, you get your memories wiped, and you go back to your boring shifts scanning boring travelers with boring problems. Option 2, you listen to what I'm about to say, and your lives get a whole lot more complicated. Complicated how? Thax asked, his voice cracking. Complicated like learning that the Rixian conflict never really ended. Complicated like finding out that Omega Black wasn't disbanded because of peace, but because we discovered something. Something big. Something that certain people in very high places wanted buried along with everyone who knew about it. The lead Vaxian agent's scales shifted color, a sign of extreme agitation in his species. Cole, stop talking. Right now. Or what? Marcus challenged. You'll shoot me? In the middle of a public transit hub? That'll keep things quiet. Or maybe you'll try to take me by force. I'm curious to see how that plays out, considering I've got enough classified tech in my body to level this entire section if I wanted to. Nobody moved. Even the air seemed afraid to circulate. I should have chosen option 1. Any sane Krellian would have. Memory wipe sounded pretty good right about then, honestly. But instead, I heard myself say, what did you discover? Thax turned to stare at me like I'd just volunteered to juggle plasma grenades. Marcus's smile returned, but this time it had warmth in it. Real warmth. You sure you want to know, Officer Venik? No, I said honestly. But I'm asking anyway. He nodded slowly, like I'd passed some kind of test. The Rixians weren't the enemy. They never were. They were trying to warn us. About something coming. Something that makes every war, every conflict, every petty territorial dispute in the history of the galaxy look like playground squabbles. The female Krellian agent stepped forward, her weapon now openly drawn but pointed at the floor. This is your final warning, Cole. Stand down, or we will use force. No, you won't, Marcus said calmly. Because using force means causing a scene. Causing a scene means questions. Questions mean investigations. And investigations mean people like Officer Venik here start pulling threads. And we both know what happens when people start pulling threads on Omega Black operations. The truth comes out, I said slowly, pieces clicking together in my mind faster than I was comfortable with. Exactly. Marcus looked at the agents. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to report back to whoever sent you that Marcus Cole is in the wind. You're going to say the scan was a glitch, the alert was a false positive, and the security officers involved saw nothing worth remembering. And then you're going to walk away. And if we don't, the Vaxian asked, the tattoos on Marcus's arm blazed bright enough to cast shadows across the room. Every screen in the security station flickered, displaying lines of code that scrolled too fast to read. The lights dimmed. Systems beeped an alarm. And I realized with creeping horror that he wasn't just carrying classified tech. He was networked into the station itself. Then I activate Protocol 17, Marcus said softly. And every classified file, every buried report, every hidden truth about the Omega Black program gets simultaneously uploaded to every public network in the galaxy. News feeds. Government databases. Personal comms. Everything. Everywhere. All at once. The silence that followed could have suffocated a star. "You're bluffing," the Vaxian said, but his voice suggested he didn't believe his own words. "Am I?" Marcus tilted his head. "Try me. I've got nothing left to lose. I've been dead in every official record for 15 years. What's one more act of terrorism against the establishment?" The three agents exchanged glances. Some kind of silent communication was happening, probably through encrypted channels, possibly debating whether one rogue operative was worth triggering the biggest information leak in galactic history. Finally, the female Krellian lowered her weapon. "This isn't over." "It never is," Marcus agreed. They left. Just turned and walked out, like the last 10 minutes hadn't happened. Like they hadn't just been outmaneuvered by a single human with glowing tattoos and a dangerous amount of leverage. I stared at Marcus. Thax stared at Marcus. Marcus stared at his transit card, still sitting on my counter, like it was the most interesting thing in the room. "So," I said eventually, because someone had to say something, "are you actually going to Pinnacle Station?" He picked up the card, tucked it into his jacket. "Eventually. Got a stop to make first." "Where?" "Earth. Got some old friends to visit. Some questions to ask." He paused. "Some people to warn." "About the thing," Thax said weakly. "The thing the Rixians were trying to warn everyone about." "Yeah. About that." Marcus started walking toward the exit, then stopped and turned back. "By the way, you two might want to request transfers. Different stations. Different sectors. Maybe take some vacation time. Anywhere but here." "Why?" I asked, though I suspected I knew the answer. "Because High Command doesn't like loose ends. And right now, you two are very loose ends." His expression turned serious. "I'm sorry about that. Really. But for what it's worth, you made the right choice. The complicated choice, but the right one." "How do you figure?" Thax demanded, his voice rising. "We just watched you threaten interstellar security, admit to being an illegal walking weapons platform, and potentially start a war with information. How is any of that the right choice?" Marcus smiled. That same tired, ancient smile. "Because now you know the truth. Or at least part of it. And truth, Officer Thax, is the only weapon that matters in the end." He walked out of Gate 7, past the scanner that had started this whole mess, and disappeared into the crowd of travelers who had no idea they'd just witnessed something that would probably get written about in classified files for the next century. Thax and I stood there, surrounded by beeping terminals and flickering screens, trying to process what had just happened. "Venik," Thax said finally, his voice hollow, "I think I want that memory wipe after all." "Yeah," I agreed, staring at the door where Marcus had vanished. "Me too." But we both knew we weren't going to request it. Because he was right. We knew the truth now, or at least a piece of it. And once you know the truth, once you've seen behind the curtain, you can't unknow it. You can't unsee it, you can only decide what to do next. I looked down at my datapad, at the error messages still scrolling across the screen, at the words clearance level extinct flashing like a warning I should have heeded. Somewhere out there, Marcus Cole was walking toward answers. Toward warnings. Toward whatever the Rixians had been trying to tell us, and somewhere in the deepest, most classified corners of High Command, very important people were having very unpleasant conversations about what to do when an extinct operator comes back from the dead. My shift still had 6 hours left. 6 hours of pretending everything was normal. 6 hours of scanning ordinary travelers with ordinary problems, but nothing felt ordinary anymore, and I had a feeling it never would again.